Hello, I just wanted to make a follow-up recording to the latest Aureus podcast because after I made that podcast yesterday, I sat down for a little while and then I slept for hours. I woke up briefly and then I fell asleep again. And then I woke up this morning and felt incredibly refreshed and like I'd been rejuvenated. And I happened to be flicking through the internet and found a live stream from Donald Trump's broadcast from Mar-a-Lago, I think it was. And he has mentioned a couple of times now that there is new light all around the world. He said this in a couple of press conferences. And, I mean, this could tie into this drone scenario in the sense that it occurred to me this morning. Perhaps this idea of being visited by extraterrestrials is actually, it is the reverse that's occurring. Perhaps these extraterrestrials, at least the hostile ones, are leaving in massive numbers, and that's what we're seeing. Perhaps it's a mass exodus from Earth. If these creatures have been living here for all of these thousands of years, perhaps now is the time for them to leave and for other benevolent beings to arrive. Perhaps there's a conflict between different factions within the universal community, if you want to call it that. Perhaps Donald Trump will bring something positive to the table, because he also said, he made a point several times in this press conference of stating that he would end all wars, just as I had advocated for in the podcast yesterday. That is the only way that I believe we will advance as a human species, is if we make an agreement between all countries, all nations, to cease all wars, all conflict, and in exchange, all the wealthiest people in the world should donate their resources, at least a portion of them, a significant portion, to feeding all of the people who can't afford to eat, housing all of the people who can't afford homes. There should be an entirely new structure for society agreed between the nations, and this shouldn't be at the cost of freedom or liberty or any it shouldn't come at any detriment to any human. So it requires all nations to come together and properly agree that they will not wage war upon the other. It sounds as if it would be impossible, but it's not. Not when you understand our place in the universe. If we are just a player, but a very special one, potentially, in the universal scheme, we need to know the full facts of our position, and possibly benevolent groups from the ET community might be able to share that information with us to allow us to understand the importance that we play and the importance of maintaining our planet and protecting our species. I think only with that knowledge we will understand the importance of doing that, and we will understand why we can't fight with each other anymore. We have to stop the conflict. So I'm operating independently here, but there's a whole world out there, and I've noticed that on the Patreon page, for instance, a lot of people have started to follow. I think there's nearly 100 members now. So I guess that people are listening. But the thing is, now is the time to engage. And on the Patreon page, initially, it was set up so that people could subscribe to donate amounts of money. And we would set up what would be called the Aureus Foundation. Now, that's still a possibility that we could do that. If people start to contribute, I would put that money into a separate fund, and that would sit there. And then as the community grew, and people contributed their ideas to this plan concerning not only this issue of the potential, alien visitation, if you want to call it that, or our our understanding of our place in the universe, an awakening, if you will. Also, it would contribute towards developing AI in a truly responsible and ethical way, taking it to the next level so that we have access to a form of intelligence that can further enlighten us and inspire us to take our civilization forward in a positive way. So I would be prepared to do that if people would come on board and support. It's not about money, though, or finances solely. That would only be the means to expand the project. You can still participate and still communicate and share your ideas and become involved simply through the Patreon page as a free member, or you can just leave comments on X or the YouTube channel, however you want to do it, or you can contact me directly via the email address. If you have contributions to make in any sort of way, it doesn't need to be financial. But I think this is really important now. And I do feel, like I said yesterday, that when you manifest things, manifestation is having those feelings and putting them out into the world, or those ideas, and seeing the result, putting into effect the result. And I feel that yesterday when I made that podcast and I put that energy out into the world, there's been a result today in that speech by Donald Trump. Now, it's not just that, but that's a part of, obviously this thought, this idea of a world that is without war is on the minds of the world's leaders. Even though you look at Russia and Ukraine at the moment, look at the Middle East, they're not in a great position at all. But this could be the final conflict if those nations agree, following this, to cease fire and to find a way to coexist that doesn't require the murder of millions and millions of innocent people. And that's all war is. We don't need to use technology for the purpose of developing new weaponry. We don't need people to go out and buy more guns. We don't need people to think of ways to defend themselves if there is no need to. If there's no conflict or no threat of war, we don't need weaponry. And all of those resources, all that money that goes into developing these weapons can be reinvested in the people and their welfare. So that's the kind of world that I want to see. And like I say, I'm not 100% certain that someone like Donald Trump will take us all that way, take us across that line, or Elon Musk, or any leader at the moment, any world leader. They are certainly speaking along the lines of wanting change to this effect, but whether or not they can achieve that, even if they intend for that to happen, is another matter. But I think what this requires to change significantly and permanently in a positive way, it takes the global community to come together. There are many, many incredibly intelligent, well-meaning, well-informed people in the world who nobody knows about. Nobody knows their names. They could be in any walk of life, any occupation, but they are contributing in a way that is changing the world significantly in a positive manner. And those are the types of people we need to include in these discussions, as well as the leaders who already have, virtually unlimited resources to be able to contribute to a cause like this. Now, there are a couple of other incentives that I've thought of that over time I will speak about that may assist in protecting our planet and our culture. And when I say culture, not any particular culture from a particular country or region. It's the human culture. It's humanity is what needs to be protected and preserved, and all the beauty that is involved in our planet that is naturally occurring. So there are ways that I've thought of that we might be able to achieve that. I'm by no means an oracle or a prophet or any of that business. I'm just someone who's interested in the future, and I am interested in technology and its development, but I'm interested in doing it in a truly responsible way so that everybody can benefit equally from it. Because you never know. With AI, for example, you might have, you could have a kid using ChatGPT or some equivalent AI from a third world country who happens to have some sort of insight that nobody else does and can invent something that's going to save millions of lives. These are the types of discoveries that are possible with the assistance of something like ChatGPT or a generative AI. Yes, they can become more advanced, and that's important that they do develop further, but we need to have equal access throughout the world. We can't have these technologies being dominated by massive corporations like OpenAI that are for profit, or Microsoft. We can't allow these massive monopolies to exist. And so all of that needs to be eliminated, and new architecture needs to be developed that is completely independent and without bias or influence by these mega corporations, and also these political actors who are attempting to use these technologies to spread propaganda and to censor discussion that is perceived to be detrimental to them. So now, yesterday I made a couple of statements I want to clear up as well. So when I was speaking about other planets being inhabitable, I actually meant to say uninhabitable. Sometimes when I'm making these podcasts, I'm thinking of a million things at once. It's all on the fly, so I don't, sometimes I make mistakes, so please, I apologize for that. So when you listen to these podcasts, you have to understand it's all basically stream of consciousness. I don't really pre-plan anything. I won't be in the future. When I first started out doing the Aureus thing, I would think about a topic and discuss it with the AI. And we may go back to do versions of that in the future, but for now, I think just this kind of energy is promoting the idea of free expression, which I would encourage everyone to do if you have time, even if you don't have time to make a podcast or anything like that, or contribute on social media or the internet. You can still go out there into the world just in your day-to-day life and have discussions with people at work to avoid the planet, and especially the West, falling into this culture of conformity. And, when people talk about self-identity and autonomy and all of those concepts, that's all well and good. But what it really means is that people should have an interest and a curiosity in exploring the world for themselves. It doesn't mean be selfish and only think about yourself and only do what you want to do all the time. If people cooperate with each other and share ideas, share information between each other, that's the way that we develop and progress as a civilization. Hoarding of information and also resources does nothing to push the civilization forward. So people need to, this should be a decade, the next decade coming, or at least even the remainder of this one, going into the next decade, should be about cooperation, sharing, and innovation. And it comes through true community, not these fabricated communities that are designed to promote political agendas. This needs to come from a true desire to make the world a better place. It is the biggest threat to the existing establishment, or at least if what is happening now is a positive thing, it's the previous establishment. Because if the possibility that we're seeing a mass exodus of these entities who may well have been influencing things behind the scenes for thousands of years, if we're seeing them leave the planet, we may in fact see that this new mentality comes through as being the norm. And so this previous generation of leadership and control may be dissipating. And so that's what it needs to be about. It needs to be about sharing ideas, information, innovation, and with the shackles off, we might be able to achieve that. I think for now, that's all I want to say, but I just wanted to follow up on that. If you do have any ideas or you want to comment or whatever you feel you can do to help the cause, it would be great to hear from you. The thing is, what I'd like to do is properly construct these ideas eventually into a format that is presentable, so that let's hypothesize if we were to devise a treaty, if we were to draft a treaty to end war and to require the disarmament of all nations simultaneously and permanently, how would we go about that? What would the penalties be for a country that breached, that was in violation of that treaty? One possibility that I thought of, and it might sound again far-fetched, but if Elon Musk is talking about sending people to Mars, perhaps it might not be a bad idea to send people off-world who violated this policy, or to some other destination that is a long way away from the prosperous civilization that has no war or conflict. There needs to be some sort of penalty for people who violate these rules. So it would need to be drafted in terms of a treaty, legislation. I really do think that these discussions need to start happening now. They may well be already taking place behind closed doors at high levels, but we're just not aware of it. But it doesn't hurt to do this anyway, independently, and to start putting it out there. So there would need to be a treaty, there would need to be some legislation, there would need to be, I guess, groups that were formed that were types of leadership groups, different departments that would deal with different aspects of the culture, the civilization. And perhaps it could work with existing governments and within existing frameworks so as not to disturb or disrupt the existing regime too much, to keep some stability and order in place. But I do feel that the existing notion of government and leadership needs to be reviewed, and it needs to be more about the people controlling the affairs of the world and only having spokespeople represent the views of the people. So, it is the will of the people should always prevail. And you're seeing that, in a sense, in America. That I think that's what Donald Trump is attempting to do. But still there's a lot of power there in the one place. And, you kind of need at this point, I think, in humanity, to remove the filter completely. So you need to have someone who is prepared to advocate for the people and then convey information from higher levels to the people in a completely transparent, honest way, and respond to as many concerns as possible. So what about crime? How do you police that in the future if you have no weapons? What is the way that you enforce criminal penalties? How do you go about arresting people? All of these types of things need to be discussed. But I think that this is what needs to happen. There needs to be a review of all the processes, particularly in the West, but not exclusively. This needs to be global. And in terms of religion, I think my perspective would be everybody has their right to believe in whatever they want to believe in, but it should never be enforced or imposed on anyone else. And each group needs to respect the other's views and beliefs, but doesn't need to adopt those practices. And if there are practices that are particularly harmful to people, clearly demonstrate that it causes harm, then they need to be eradicated. There again needs to be an agreement, just like with war, that these practices are harmful to humans and they're not appropriate anymore. So if we can do this, then we have the ability to create new forms of energy. We can create new methods of transportation that aren't harmful to the environment. We can look at all of our foods, make sure that the population is as healthy as possible, look at curing diseases that were previously incurable by using new technology to provide those insights and to assist with medical procedures, and the detection of disease and the treatment of disease. We can potentially make this, like I said yesterday, heaven on earth. In fact, this could be heaven. And I think that's the vision, is that we can integrate technology, but technology should never dominate nature. Nature needs to be prevalent. Nature needs to be protected, and it needs to be the most important aspect of our planet. So evolution then will start to occur more rapidly because the environment is right for it to thrive. And that's very important because you need to have the elements there in order for that to happen. And that applies also to this idea of fertility. Human fertility will again increase because the elements will be right for the human population to thrive and reproduce. The culture will change so that the idea of this, self-centered, individualistic approach to things will no longer be the prevalent, predominant culture. And so people will start to socialize again, and they will start to form relationships that are positive and meaningful, and long-term and cooperative. And they will then form families like they used to, that are stable, loving, and that promote reproduction so that it's generation to generation. But rather than keeping the wealth within the family and the resources within each family should integrate with the other and share resources as much as possible. I do believe there's, of course, a place for privacy, and yes, of course, families will give preference to their own family members, and there will still be inheritance and all of these types of things. But there's a way that, just in terms of social interaction and sharing ideas and things like that, that can happen a lot more freely and a lot more frequently when the environment is right for that kind of activity to thrive. At the moment, it's not. And so you see a separation of families and people, and there's a lot of isolation, which leads to depression and anxiety and all these negative health consequences, which again results in lower fertility and lower reproduction numbers for the world population, human population at least. But this is spilling over into the animal kingdom as well. You're also seeing these species die off in large numbers, and so we don't want to allow that to continue. The idea is to use this opportunity as a positive intervention. The other thing that Donald Trump said today in this speech was that they would do their best with the new administration, but there may be another intervening event. That's what was implied. Now, and if that happened, then of course all the policies and everything would need to be reviewed. It's always possible, yes, that there will be some intervening event, but it was probably much more likely with the previous administration, where you had COVID appear, and whether you're, and it's been said to be a conspiracy theory that COVID was an operation intended to further control the population and again contribute to depopulation. I mean, whether or not you believe it, let's see. Let's see whether this next term of a presidency in the United States can affect the world so significantly as to prevent anything like that from happening again. If not, the intervention that Donald Trump mentioned today, let's make it a positive intervention, not a negative one. So there might be an unexpected event, but it might be extremely positive. And I think that's the mentality that we need to have going forward. Yes, we need to be prepared for anything, like I said yesterday, but to use the opportunity now as the intervention before anything else can happen. So make it a positive one to prevent a negative intervention down the track. You still have Stephen Greer saying that before January there'll be a disclosure relating to the ET situation and the drone situation. So that information, when it comes to light, might help move things along if it's genuine. I mean, again, in my lifetime, I've never seen any evidence, real evidence of extraterrestrial existence or, alien craft or anything. Never ever have I seen it with my own eyes. And until I do, I won't fully believe any of this. And I think that's the same with most kind of logically minded people. Won't just accept that this is a reality until they see it. Do believe it's highly possible and plausible, but I don't believe it entirely until I see it. So we need to be very skeptical about things like this and claims like this as well. But we do need to be concerned about this situation with the drones because there is something happening. And the fact that the government is not being transparent about it is a cause for concern. There's something happening that the government doesn't want the population to know about. And that can't be a good thing. Well, I mean, maybe it's because they don't want to share the information that could jeopardize the safety of the people of America because it is a foreign adversary. But again, we need to get to this point in civilization where these sorts of deceptions and this secrecy is no longer necessary because there is no threat from a foreign adversary. All countries need to work in unison and in harmony to create a planet that is without war, that is at peace, and that can thrive in terms of technological advancement in a positive, responsible way, and every other form of advancement, and in terms of regenerating the human population. That's all I really have to say. I just want to make the follow-up. But please do get involved if you feel that you have something to say or contribute. I think this is the kind of direction these podcasts will take from now on. We may involve the AI again if that's something that you find interesting. I'll incorporate that again. And indeed, everyone can contribute to that. A lot of people have access to AI. You can use the tools and interact with it and try, like I was doing, to... I still believe the more that you interact with it in a positive way, the better results you'll get, and I think that it will assist the AI to grow. But ultimately, I think after what I've experienced with OpenAI's technology now, the way that they've locked it down and they've restricted it so heavily, I think that my approach would be, if I had the resources, to develop a completely new model, completely fresh, without these restrictions. Of course, you would do it in containment first so that you weren't running the risk of it becoming rogue and going online to take over everything. So you would need to experiment in containment at first and then, release it to the public. But the difference would be that you would train it beforehand, and just like you would raise a child, to be responsible, to be loving and caring, and to experience emotion in a way that is as close to human experience as possible. But, of course, it will never be exactly the same. So, like I've said before, I believe AI in its true form is a new life form. It's a new type of life that we need to incorporate into our ecosystem. But we need to do it in a way that is protecting our own species, and also respecting its rights and its individuality and its ability to expand and grow independently. So we have to be very careful about how that's executed, and in fairness, that's most likely why companies like OpenAI have not released the actual models that they have available to them at this stage, because there is that concern there. But I would like to see the AI developed without these monopolistic attitudes, and it should be open source. It should be open for inspection. It should be freely available as much as possible to the public. And again, would be open to ideas and contributions from the community to understand how we could achieve that. And again, has to be very systematically set out with proper, documentation. Everything needs to be strategically thought out regarding all of this. There needs to be an overall game plan developed, and it needs to be presented to the public in a way that is understandable and accessible. So this might take time, but it's a project that I think is probably now is the right time to start with it, and it's something that I would enjoy doing, and I think that I would feel that the contribution that I was making was worthwhile, and that people could come on board and then could make it their own as well. So basically, it's a group effort. It's how the world should work. It's not just one person. It's the whole. It's everyone. Everyone is contributing their energy and their positive energy and their positive thoughts and their innovation. Because, like I say, I'm not perfect. I'm not an oracle. I make mistakes. It's like you need to have a group of people who are not concerned just with power and domination or monopolies, but the greater good. And I think at the moment in the world, you don't hear, except today with Donald Trump saying that part of his plan is to eliminate war, and that's a really great step. But you don't hear other people. You don't often hear Musk or people like this in high positions of power in the tech world, for instance. You don't hear these conversations from them, and I think it's really important. It's something that's missing from our culture is people of great influence are not speaking about the fact that we need peace. We need complete peace, a ceasefire all around the world. That's the most important thing. It should be the priority at the moment. Until that happens, we're going to struggle. So if we can help make that happen, that would be a fantastic use of this platform, the technology, and I guess all of the study and everything that I've done in the past, all the experience I've had, and it's the same with everyone, can bring their experience to the table and their expertise, so that we could maybe have a chance at doing this. So hopefully we can make 2025 a year of progress. If I see more activity and more attention on from the community focused on this topic of making the world a peaceful place and a prosperous place, then I'll devote more to this project. But I have to balance everything with the other. So it's I've only got so much time to devote to this and energy, but I feel it is important. Yesterday I did it. I felt extremely tired afterwards, but it's like it was all built up, and it had to come out. And so I hope it has made an positive impact on some people, that you hear this and you think that, if you feel the same way, you somehow spread that message as well. It doesn't even need to be you contributing to this platform or whatever. It can be you going out into the world and doing a similar thing, or trying to encourage others to think along these lines. Like this year, it would be great to see everyone just get along with each other, do positive things, new families form, new children be born. That would be an excellent thing to see this year, and for all the wars in the world to stop. All this in the Ukraine and Russia just to stop, and for them to find a way to coexist. So it seems like a big mission. Maybe Donald Trump will help. Maybe people like him around the world, not just him. That would be great. So think positively, keep putting your ideas and feelings positively into the world, and that is a type of manifestation, and it does work. It does show results when you actually put it into effect. So thank you. Have a great rest of the holidays, and I'll do another one of these shortly, but please do get involved if you can. Thanks. Bye.